This is Tehran. It's the capital of Iran, and it looks nothing like what you've been told. It's not gleaming and flat like Dubai. It's not Medina-dense like Cairo. It's not oil-ordered like Riyadh. Tehran is a city of 16 million people, framed by snow-capped mountains layered with contradiction, shaped less by what its government says it is and more by what its people have quietly refused to stop being. But how did it end up like this? How does a city survive a revolution, a brutal 8-year war, and 4 decades of economic siege, and come out the other side as one of the most distinct, complex, and misunderstood capitals on Earth? Well, contrary to popular belief, Tehran's story doesn't begin with the Islamic Revolution, or the hostage crisis, or the nuclear headlines. Those are the labels. The story starts much earlier. I'd say it really begins in 1795, when a warlord from the Qajar tribe rode into a modest market town south of the Alborz Mountains and made a decision that would shape the next 230 years of Persian history. Aga Muhammad Khan Qajar chose Tehran as his capital not because it was grand. It wasn't. It was a mid-sized trading town, notable mostly for its mild climate and its geography. Positioned between the central plateau and the mountains to the north, it was defensible, well-placed, and largely unclaimed. He chose it for its potential, not its past. As the Qajar dynasty grew, so did Tehran. By the mid-1800s, it had taken on the shape of a real capital. A walled city, a bazaar at its heart, a royal palace complex expanding outward. Golestan Palace, still standing today, was the seat of Qajar power, a jewel of Persian Islamic architecture that has almost no equivalent anywhere in the Arab world. Because it isn't Arab. It never was. Tehran belongs to a civilization, Persian, that predates Islam, predates the Arab world's political rise, and has maintained a fiercely separate cultural identity through every invasion and occupation in recorded history. The language is different, the architecture is different, the mythology, the calendar, the food, the music, all different. That distinction is not just cultural pride, it is the single most important thing to understand about why Tehran is structurally unlike every other capital in its region. By 1900, the city held roughly 250,000 people. By 1920, the Qajar dynasty was weakening, destabilized by Russian and British interference and unable to hold the country together. A military officer named Reza Khan was consolidating power, and what he had in mind for Tehran was something no Persian capital had ever attempted. In 1925, Reza Khan became Reza Shah Pahlavi, founder of a new dynasty, and the transformation he imposed on Tehran was radical by any measure. He had looked at what Ataturk was doing to Istanbul, stripping Ottoman tradition, forcing European modernity, and he wanted the same. He wanted Tehran to become the Paris of the Middle East. What followed was one of the most dramatic urban reinventions in the region's history. Narrow bazaar lanes were replaced by wide European-style boulevards. The old city walls came down. Neoclassical government buildings went up. A national university opened in 1934. Railways connected Tehran to the rest of the country. The city was being rewired, top-down, fast, and with very little regard for what it replaced. His son, Mohammad Reza Shah, pushed even further. Through the 1960s and 70s, Tehran became something genuinely unlike any other capital in the region. International hotels, functioning cinemas, contemporary art galleries, and a nightlife scene that rivaled Beirut at its peak. The city's population had exploded, from 700,000 in 1950 to over 4.5 million by the late 1970s, and Tehran's ambitions were expanding with it. In 1971, the Shahyad Tower was erected to celebrate 2,500 years of Persian civilization. It still defines Tehran's skyline today. It was later renamed the Azadi Tower, the Freedom Tower, by the revolution that overthrew the dynasty that built it. The same structure, two completely opposite meanings. That tower is Tehran in a single image. On February the 11th, 1979, the Islamic Revolution completed its takeover of Tehran. The Shah fled. Ayatollah Khomeini returned from exile in Paris, And overnight, the city that had spent 50 years building toward Western-style modernity was pointed in a completely different direction. This is Tehran's defining rupture, and it functions similarly to what happened in Berlin in 1961 when the wall went up. Except the division here wasn't concrete and geography, it was ideological, and it ran straight through the interior of the city and through the interior of its people. What Tehranis showed on the surface and what they lived behind closed doors became two entirely separate realities. Cinemas closed, music was banned from public spaces, Western cultural influence was declared the enemy of the revolution, dress codes were enforced. The Paris of the Middle East was now officially an Islamic republic, but the city didn't disappear. It adapted. Just a year after the revolution, Iraq invaded. The Iran-Iraq War from 1980 to 1988 was one of the most devastating conflicts of the 20th century. Over 1 million casualties, chemical weapons deployed, and a Western front that sent waves of refugees flooding into Tehran from destroyed cities like Khorramshahr and Ahvaz. The city's population surged far beyond anything its infrastructure had been designed for. Resources were rationed. Missiles hit residential districts. Tehran lived under blackouts and air raid sirens for 8 years, and it did not collapse. This is the part of Tehran's story that fits into none of the Western narratives about Iran. The sanctions that accumulated from 1979 onward and tightened with every passing decade were designed to economically isolate the country and pressure its government. What they did to Tehran as a city was something different entirely. They forced it to build from the inside. Unable to import freely, the city industrialized domestically. Unable to rely on foreign capital or outside expertise, it developed its own engineering base, its own supply chains, its own internal logic. By the early 2000s, Tehran was constructing what would become one of the most extensive metro systems in the Middle East. 7 lines, over 120 stations, built largely with the domestic engineering under full economic siege. While Gulf capitals were flying in architects from London and New York, importing entire city master plans from abroad, and assembling skylines with foreign labor, Tehran was building with what it had. The result was messier, denser, more organic, and in many ways more genuinely urban. But this is where Tehran becomes truly unlike anything else in the region. While every other Middle Eastern capital was building its identity outward in record-breaking towers, luxury malls, Formula One circuits, and international expo bids, Tehran was building its identity inward. And what emerged inside the official city is one of the most remarkable urban phenomena of the past 50 years. Private apartments in North Tehran became art galleries. Basements became recording studios. Rooftops became the venues for a music scene that the government didn't sanction but couldn't fully reach. The same city where public music was banned produced a sophisticated hip-hop, electronic, and underground rock culture. It circulated through private networks, USB drives, and eventually social media with a fluency that no state apparatus managed to stop. Women who covered publicly, uncovered privately. Fashion that was restricted in the street was photographed indoors and shared globally on Instagram via VPN with millions of followers. A generation of Iranians, 60% of the population under 35, with one of the highest literacy rates in the region, built an entire parallel life inside the official one. There is a direct parallel here with post-reunification Berlin. When the wall fell, what was left behind was a vacuum. And that vacuum was filled by artists, students, and experimenters who built something no government had planned or intended. Tehran's underground culture is that same impulse, sustained for 4 decades, under active suppression rather than political collapse. The creative energy that survives against a system is always more powerful than the creative energy the system tries to direct. Today, Tehran holds 16 million people in its greater metropolitan area. Its metro carries over 3 million passengers a day. The north-south divide within the city is so extreme that it functions almost as 2 separate cities, layered on top of each other. The wealthy, tree-lined districts of Elahiye and Shemiran sit in the foothills of the Alborz. cooler, greener, and a world apart economically from the dense, flat, working-class districts of the South, where the bizarre economy still sets the pulse of daily life. It is a city where over 50% of university students are women, where underground filmmakers win at Cannes, where a domestic tech sector operates in Farsi for an Iranian audience under sanctions that should theoretically make it impossible. Tehran is not the city the Islamic Republic designed. It is not the city the Pahlavi Shah designed before that, and it is not the city that decades of Western foreign policy coverage has described. It has slipped past every version of itself that power has tried to impose on it. Unlike Dubai, it was not assembled in a generation on empty desert with imported labor. Unlike Riyadh, it was not built outward by petrodollar planning. Unlike Cairo, it was not left to absorb population pressure without the will or means to respond. Tehran was built by contradiction, by the gap between what each ruling power demanded of it and what 16 million people quietly continued to be regardless. What makes a city truly distinct is never its skyline, its government, or what it calls itself. It is the gap between what a city is told to be and what its people refuse to stop being anyway. Tehran has been labeled a rogue state capital by the West, a fortress of Islamic virtue by its own government, a footnote of the Arab world by people who don't even know it isn't Arab. It is none of those things. It is a Persian city, ancient, educated, contradictory, and stubbornly alive in ways that none of the labels placed on it have ever managed to reach. Every other Middle Eastern capital tells you exactly what it is. Tehran is the only one that shows you something different every time you look. And that, more than its mountains, its metro, or its monuments, is what makes it the opposite of every capital in its region. Thank you for watching.